Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. Get ready for heart-touching stories. Don't forget to subscribe and let's begin.
The morning it happened, I had been awake since 4 o'clock. That was nothing unusual for a man of 73. Sleep and old age have a complicated relationship. They tolerate each other but rarely get along. I had shuffled to the kitchen in my worn slippers, brewed a pot of coffee strong enough to strip paint, and settled into my armchair by the window the way I did every single morning, watching the neighborhood ease itself into another Tuesday. My name is Harold Briggs. I'm a retired railroad engineer, a widower of 6 years and the grandfather of four. My daughter Patris lives 20 minutes away and checks on me more than I deserve. She worries. That's her full-time job now, I tell her, worrying about her old father rattling around alone in a three-bedroom house that used to hold a family and a future, and the smell of her mother's cooking. The toy car belonged to my youngest grandson Marcus. He was 5 years old and obsessed with anything that had wheels. Every time Patris brought him over, he dragged a small fleet of vehicles behind him in a mesh bag, filling my quiet house with engine sounds he made himself: vroom, screech, kaboom, his little mouth never stopping. I loved it. Lord help me, that noise was the best sound in the world. 2 weeks before everything changed, Marcus had been over for a Sunday visit. At some point during his enthusiastic racing circuit, which involved my kitchen floor, the hallway, and a dramatic finish line near the base of the stairs, one of his cars went rogue. A small red thing, barely 2 inches long, with a tiny yellow flame painted on the hood. It skidded under the edge of the baseboard heater in the hallway and disappeared. Marcus was briefly devastated, the way only a 5-year-old can be devastated, completely and theatrically, but then he found another car in his bag and moved on with the resilience that only children possess. The red car stayed where it was. I told myself I'd get it out later. I didn't. A week passed, then another. It sat there in the shadows, forgotten by everyone except, I suppose, the universe. That Tuesday morning, I finished my coffee and decided I felt good enough to do something I'd been putting off for 3 weeks: cleaning out the hallway closet. Patris had been hinting at it with the gentle persistence only daughters are capable of. "Dad, that closet is a hazard," she'd said the last time she visited, eyeing the tower of old shoeboxes, folded grocery bags, and miscellaneous items I'd been storing with what I considered perfectly reasonable logic. I gathered my supplies, a trash bag, a folding step stool, and my reading glasses, and planted myself in front of that closet with the grim determination of a man facing a necessary but unpleasant task. I made decent progress for the first hour: 3 bags of garbage, a box set aside for donation. Even found my wife Aliner's old gardening gloves, which stopped me cold for a few minutes while I held them in my hands and remembered her. Then I needed something from the top shelf. I set up the step stool, the same one I'd had for 15 years, a little aluminum thing that had always been perfectly reliable, and climbed up. I was reaching for a box of old Christmas ornaments when my right foot came down wrong off the edge of the second step. I felt the stool tip. Time did that strange thing it does in moments of crisis, where it stretches out like taffy, giving you just enough space to realize what's about to happen but not quite enough to stop it. I went down. I caught the closet door frame with my left hand, not enough to stop the fall, but enough to twist it. I hit the hallway floor hard, right hip taking the worst of it, my left wrist folding beneath me at an angle that sent a white bolt of pain straight up my arm. I lay there in the hallway, the Christmas ornament box having come down with me, a strand of silver tinsel draped absurdly across my chest. I took stock. I was breathing. I was conscious. I was in significant pain, but I had enough presence of mind to run through the basic checklist. Move your feet, yes. Move your right hand, yes. Left wrist, no, not well anyway. When I tried to push myself up, the wrist gave out entirely and I went back down, cheek against the cold floor, staring at the baseboard heater 3 feet away. That's when I saw it, the little red car with the yellow flame on the hood, sitting right there in the shadow of the baseboard heater, right at eye level, waiting. Now I want to be clear about what happened next, because the details matter. My phone was in the kitchen. I know. Every person who hears this story, including my cardiologist and both of my sons, has delivered the same lecture about medical alert devices and keeping phones on my person, and I have accepted every word of it. But that morning my phone was on the kitchen counter, 22 feet away, and I could not get to it. I tried. I spent what felt like 20 minutes attempting to drag myself down that hallway, but my hip was screaming and my wrist was useless, and the linoleum floor offered nothing to grip. I got perhaps 4 feet before I had to stop, breathing hard, the pain having shifted from sharp to something deeper and more insistent. I was starting to understand that this was serious. Not fatal. I didn't believe I had broken my hip, though the fear of that particular outcome for a man my age was not far from my mind, but serious enough that I needed help and needed it soon. I called out. I knew it was pointless. The nearest neighbor was Mrs. Alderman, and she was partially deaf and unlikely to be near enough to hear me through 2 closed doors and a wall, but I called out anyway several times, until my voice felt thin and the hallway just swallowed the sound. I lay still for a moment, conserving energy, trying to think clearly. The front door was locked. Patris wasn't due to check on me until Thursday. My son Raymond was in Phoenix. I had no medical alert device. My phone was in the kitchen, then I looked at that little red car again. Here's what I want you to understand about lying alone on a floor in pain: your mind reaches for things, it grasps at anything available. And something about that small red toy, Marcus's car, left behind by a 5-year-old who had already moved on to the next adventure, made something click into place. The laundry room. The laundry room was 6 feet behind me, not 22 feet ahead. And in the laundry room on top of the dryer was the cordless phone for the landline that Patris had insisted I keep, even though I complained it was unnecessary. I had not used that phone in 4 months. I barely remembered it existed. But I remembered it now. Getting to the laundry room took 11 minutes. I timed it later after everything was over. And I was lying in a hospital bed with my wrists set and wrapped, and Patris sitting beside me, squeezing my right hand like she was afraid I might float away. 11 minutes of dragging myself backward inch by inch, using my right arm and my heels, stopping twice when the pain peaked too sharply to push through. But I made it. I got the door open. I pulled myself up using the front of the dryer as leverage, managing to get to my knees and then with the dryer taking my full weight to a standing position. I took the phone off the top, and I called 911. The paramedics arrived in 7 minutes. I had a fractured wrist, severe bruising along my left hip, and a mild concussion I hadn't even realized I'd sustained when my head glanced off the closet door frame on the way down. They told me later that given my age, the position I was in, and the way the hip had been compressed, remaining on that floor for another few hours could have resulted in outcomes I'd prefer not to dwell on. Complications, the kind that compound. Patris arrived at the hospital 40 minutes after the ambulance did. She had been crying in the car, I could tell, though she had pulled herself together before she walked into my room. She's her mother's daughter that way, composed on the outside, a whole weather system happening underneath. Dad, she said, and then she didn't say anything else for a moment. She just sat down and took my hand. I told her the whole story. When I got to the part about Marcus's toy car catching my eye and redirecting my thinking toward the laundry room phone, she was quiet for a long time. That car has been under that heater for 2 weeks, she finally said. Yes, you never picked it up. Kept meaning to. She laughed then, the complicated kind of laugh that sits right on the border of crying. I'm going to have to tell Marcus, she said. I'm going to have to tell a 5-year-old that his Hot Wheel saved his grandfather's life. Wasn't a Hot Wheel, I told her. It was a $2 car from the checkout lane at the grocery store. He picked it out himself. She wiped her eyes. Even better, Marcus came to visit me on the Saturday after I came home from the hospital. He stood in my hallway with his mesh bag of cars and stared at the spot by the baseboard heater where his red car had sat, as if he were studying the scene of something important. Then he looked up at me with those enormous dark eyes of his. Grandpa, he said very seriously, you can keep that car. I told him I would keep it forever. It's sitting on my windowsill right now, the little red car with the yellow flame on the hood. I've given it a position of honor between Alina's photograph and the small wooden cross she kept by her bedside. It looks almost regal there, flanked by things that matter. I have a medical alert button now. I wear it every day, even in the shower. Patris made me promise, and I keep my promises. I have also moved the cordless phone to the bedroom, and I keep my cell phone in my shirt pocket from morning until night. Patris's brother Raymond sent a whole lecture from Phoenix that I read twice and deserved every word of, but I think about that toy car more than I think about any of those sensible precautions. I think about the randomness of it, how a small boy's moment of carelessness, a vehicle that escaped under a baseboard heater and was forgotten about for 2 weeks, became the exact thing that reset my thinking when thinking clearly mattered most. People talk about guardian angels in churchy, abstract ways. I'm not arguing against that. What I will say is that on a Tuesday morning in the hallway of my house, my guardian angel had 4 wheels, a yellow flame on the hood, and had been left behind by a 5-year-old who had already moved on to the next car in the bag. Some gifts don't look like gifts when they arrive. You only recognize them from the floor.